Hello and welcome to Sara and Tasha Live. Today it is just Tasha Live, as unfortunately Sara has another engagement that she can't get out of today. But I am thrilled to be here and to be chatting with you about self-care. So I'll start off by introducing myself just in case you're not sure exactly who I am. I'm Tasha McRae. I'm our Director of Brand and Culture here at LiveWell. And I love doing these live events because it gives me a chance to interact with our members across Canada. I am a clinical exercise physiologist by trade or training. And Sara and I are the original founders of LiveWell and the original health coach, original clinical exercise physiologist. So just love to be able to get on and chat and share our knowledge with you and hear more about what you're interested in learning about. I'm just super passionate about the fact that we have so much control over our health. Can you hear me, Marilyn? I just saw a chat that said I'm muted. Can you hear me now? John, you can hear me? All right, perfect. Oh, Marilyn, you can't hear me. So Marilyn, maybe check your volume. It might be on your end. I just got a thumbs up from John saying that he could hear me. All right. So today we were going to talk about self-care, and there's three major themes that I want to touch on when we're talking about self-care. And sounds good, Marilyn. We'll see you in a minute. And when we're talking about self-care, there's a couple of things that are important. One of them being that we do it. And this idea that me time is sort of selfish is sort of a myth that or a mindset that we have to get around. And then the second thing we're going to talk about is, what constitutes self-care really? And then the third thing I want to talk about is developing or figuring out what your non-negotiable self-care needs are. So don't worry that it's just me, because for those of you who know me, I can talk and talk and talk. I don't need Sara to riff with me. But please, if you do have questions as I'm going, I do have the chat up on my screen. So please go ahead and ask questions. So the first thing I want to talk about is this idea of me time, not being selfish. And, when people come to LiveWell often, and I don't want to generalize, but a lot of the time it is women who come to us and say, you know what? I've been neglecting myself for years as I cared for others, my children, my family. And now it's time to take care of myself. And we definitely hear that with men as well, right? We're so focused on building a career and caring for our family and taking care of our family that taking care of ourselves ends to fall to the back burner. So it can be a real shift to try to get out of that mindset that I should always be taking care of others before I take care of myself. And we share the quote a lot at LiveWell, you can't pour from a cup that's empty. And this is really talking about that importance of self-care. You are, in fact, number one. And there's no getting around that because your health is your greatest asset. And if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot give to others well. And so we really need to shift our mindset and prioritize our self-care practices. Self-care is really easy to postpone when things are getting busy and, if everything else starts to feel like really time pressing and urgent. So then we let our self-care habits kind of slip to the back. Yeah, they're not that urgent. They're important, but they're not urgent. So we'll just let those sort of fall to the wayside while we handle this thing that's sort of more in our face. But if we do that long enough, you end up being depleted, exhausted, and your health begins to really suffer, both physically and mentally. So really, really important that you do not consider self-care a luxury. It's really important so that you can go out and live your best life, live your life to the fullest, be able to contribute in the ways that you want to contribute. So first of all, let's all agree that me time is not selfish. So we have to do those self-care activities regularly. We have to prioritize them, and we shouldn't be feeling bad about it. And I know that that can be a challenge. And sometimes when people are leaving Live Well, in fact, sometimes it's because, well, I really need to um, spend more time caring for my grandchildren, and that's all good. That's all good, because that may be a real match with your health vision, but you can't let the self-care fall apart in that. So it's great if you can do both, but don't let those self-care activities slip away. So that's number one. So the second thing I wanted to sort of chat about today was, what really constitutes self-care? And most of us, when we think of self-care, we think of a little bit of pampering, relaxation. I, just as much as the next gal or guy, love to head to the spa and get massages and things like that. But there's a lot about self-care that we need to rethink, because self-care can actually be hard work. And what I mean by that is, for example, going to your medical appointments is self-care. That's doing that in a timely manner, making sure you're getting your blood your blood results done when they're supposed to be done. For example, going to screening exams, blood work was the word I was looking for. Screening exams, regularly getting those checkups that, maybe you put off. That is self-care. So again, it's not luxurious. Some of them, in fact, may be uncomfortable, but it is an important part of your self-care practice and your self-care routines. Dealing with your stress, and not just through relaxation itself, but doing the hard work. A lot of us deal with our stress by zoning out of with the TV at the end of the night, or again, we might go for a massage or something like that. But those are really short-term fixes or distractions, if you will, from our stress that gives us a temporary break. But self-care can also be about doing the work of helping deal with your stress. So that could be something like, if there's a pile of paperwork that's been sitting on your desk for ages, that, each day you look at it and go, I gotta do that, I gotta do that. Dealing with that and doing the work is actually going to help relieve your stress and give you a sense of control and accomplishment. So, tackling those tasks that you've been procrastinating on, sometimes it's having difficult conversations rather than ruminating on it, or feeling like you're in a situation or a relationship where you're not being heard. So those are also important self-care activities that we need to take care of in order to deal with our stress. Oh, excuse me, I just see some people sitting in the waiting room. Got them there. All right. So again, those are tough. They're not sort of luxury, but they are important self-care. Healthy eating is another example. It is a self-care practice, nourishing yourself and eating good foods. But healthy eating can be hard work at the beginning, especially. It gets easier as you get used to it. But, cooking, grocery shopping, meal planning, that's all work. Every Sunday I sit down and go, I do a meal plan every Sunday for my family. I meal plan just dinners, and some weeks it comes easy, and some weeks, I'm just uninspired and it's difficult. But that is the self-care that I need to make sure that I'm nourishing myself through the rest of the week. So rethinking self-care, not just to be about pampering and luxury and relaxation, as much as those fishing trips are awesome, or little, day spa activities, those are awesome. But a lot of self-care is actually work. And so really think about that. Do you have areas of your self-care that you're neglecting? And then the last thing that I really thought we could dig into today was looking at your self-care hierarchy. So everybody has, so now I'm talking more about behavioral activities. So, something like the paperwork, or getting a medical appointment done. Sometimes those are more one-time self-care activities. But when we're looking at self-care behaviors, things that we have to do regularly and consistently in order to take good care of our mental health, our financial health, our physical health. Remember, this isn't necessarily about your physical health. There's all these different dimensions of health: intellectual, emotional health, mental health, physical health, financial health, spiritual health. All of those are you need to think about when you're creating a sort of self-care practice for yourself. So looking at a self-care hierarchy. So Michelle Seeger, who is a researcher out of the University of Michigan, talks about this in her book, No Sweat. And she sort of envisions a triangle. And of course, on the base of your triangle is your foundational self-care activity. And to figure out what is foundational for you, because it's different for everybody, you kind of want to ask yourself, what behavior do I need to do in order to feel and do my best every day? And that can be different for everyone. For me, for example, sleep is absolutely at the bottom of that triangle. It is the base. If I don't get enough sleep, I'm going to be super unmotivated to exercise. I'm probably not going to feel like cooking and making the best healthy choices. I find that I crave more sort of quick, easy hit carbohydrates just to keep me kind of alert. I'll drink a little bit too much coffee. And so all of my other self-care activities suffer if my sleep suffers. So for me, sleep is the foundational activity. For other people, it could be that exercise is that foundational activity. That's the thing that if they don't exercise that day, they don't have enough energy, they don't sleep well, they tend to eat better on the days that they exercise because it really gets them thinking about their health. So really think about, what is it for you that is the bottom of that triangle? That's that foundational behavior. And everybody has probably 3 or 4 things that they need to do quite regularly in order to have good self-care, or feel like they're really taking their best care of their health. And then they need to create that habit. But knowing which one is foundational helps you plan when life gets busy and helps you prioritize, right? I've learned the hard way that's probably not a good idea to suffer on sleep just in order to get, a late night exercise routine in for me, because then I don't get enough sleep and everything else the next day suffers. So find out what habit is most powerful for you, what's the most regenerative for you, and put that at the bottom of your self-care hierarchy. And then the key is to make that non-negotiable. That is the healthy habit that you want to really zone in on, that you really want to focus on, and make sure that you're getting every single day, because it's the one that's giving you the most bang for your buck. I'm not saying abandon the other things. Don't abandon, for me, I don't abandon my nutrition and abandon my exercise, but I know that sleep is really, really important if I want to be feeling my best and working my best. So really, really important to think about what are my foundational self-care habits and then plan to get them in. How are you going to manage them? And I really recommend creating behaviors around them. I have a very regular bedtime, and I really stick to that. For exercise, it's that, you know, making that date with exercise, choosing the time that you might be doing it, and scheduling it into your calendar so that, you know, when somebody calls me up and says, "Hey, Tash, do you want to do this on such and such a date?" I can look and go, I actually have a workout scheduled that day. Doesn't mean I can't change that, right? I can be flexible. Just like you have flexible accountability during the sessions, you can move things, but you don't want to just postpone them, shove them into the future, into some, looks like there's a spot here in the future. I'll just stick my exercise session in there, even though I don't think I can make that time. Because it's really important to go, yeah, that's where I can reschedule this. So I absolutely get it done because I know that I need to do that to take care of me. And if I take care of me, I can take care of others better. I can perform better at my work. All the roles that you have in life benefit by you scheduling that time, taking that time to do something for yourself. And for everybody, it looks a little different. There just isn't a cookie cutter. You know, for some people, it's sleep. For some people, it's exercise. For some people, it's alone time. Other people might actually need social interaction as a regular habit in order to feel their best. So, really, this week, think about that. Think about one, what are those habits for you and what is the most important one? And have you optimized that in your life? And then two, I want you to think about if you have any of these one-time self-care, these other self-care things that are quite a bit of potentially work, difficult conversations, medical appointments, you know, handling tasks you've been procrastinating on, those all contribute to your overall health, even though we might not think it at first glance. And then making sure that you take the time to do them because that me time is not selfish. So that is my rant today on self-care. I just think it's such an important topic. And, you know, if we could teach this to children and we could teach them to prioritize themselves and their health before even their schoolwork, it's something I'm trying to teach my children, then potentially, you know, we wouldn't see them after they're having health problems later in life at Live Well. So really, really important to prioritize yourself. It's not easy, but it is definitely worth it. I don't see any questions in chat. Marilyn, I certainly hope that you were able to hear. Oh, I see something coming in. Is there a way of helping to select what healthy habits work for me? I currently don't have any. Should I be concerned with potentially choosing unhealthy behaviors? Or is it long as it provides me some stress relief? Yeah, I think that's a really great point that John mentioned there. You know, I talked a little bit about zoning out in front of the TV. So though that can provide, or for some people, emotional eating, right? Absolutely. Those behaviors provide short-term stress relief. The issue is that they don't tend to deal with the issue. So they don't, that relief is very temporary. And it doesn't, so we need to deal with the actual issue or the actual problem to be able to gain that sense of control. So, you know, with emotional eating, where we all eat for a certain level of emotional comfort. I mean, none of us get around that. But for example, I know that when I am, or if I'm aware, if I'm being mindful, I can often find myself in the cupboard later in the evenings because I'm tired. And so I'm trying to stay up rather than respecting my body's signals that I'm tired. And so I start to feed myself as a result. So the self-care act there becomes to go, it's okay to go to bed, even if it's a little early for me. It's okay to go to bed and to respect that my body is tired, and, watch one less show with my kids, for example, because let's face it, they don't really care if I'm on the couch beside them or not. So really, I think that's what you're saying there, John, in that question is, I think absolutely we should be concerned about whether the stress relieving things that we're kind of saying or are disguising themselves as healthcare, self-care, are really helping us. And if they're not, then how can we switch that? How can we make that change? And if you don't have, again, if you don't have self-care habits that are working for you currently, experiment, right? Be curious. As much as we'd love to say that there's a cookie cutter approach for anything, there really isn't, because we're all such individuals. So think back and ask yourself, when have I had great days? And when you do have great days, think about, what were the parameters around them, um, if you find that when you're let's say away on vacation, that you just feel so good, and don't we all feel good on vacation, but it may be an indicator that there's there's some stress that might be out of control in your day-to-day life. And so what kind of stress management practices could you try on for size and see if they make a difference for you? So is there a certain amount of time I should be trying something before determining that's a right fit for me? Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that it depends on the behavior that you're um, giving a shot to. So for example, if you might not find that just a single night's good night's sleep makes a huge difference for you, but a week might be really beneficial. And same thing with exercise. The benefits of exercise, some of them occur within 15 minutes of exercising, where some of them are going to take, several weeks or months in order to start to kick in. So I do think it depends on the behavior. I'll take meditation as an example. A lot of people are turning to meditation as sort of a stress reduction technique, a calming technique. And at the beginning, meditation can be very frustrating for some people. They just find that they sit there and their mind, what they call that monkey mind, goes wild for the 10 minutes or the 15 minutes that they've chosen to engage in that activity. And what we know is that as you continue to practice something like meditation, you learn to quiet your mind, and then you start getting more value out of that. And people who are regular meditators claim to get a real sense of peace that they're able to carry with them throughout the day. So it just doesn't happen instantaneously. So some of the things you are going to have to give time. If it's something that the word practice comes in front of, you're going to have to maybe do it for a little bit longer in order to try and see those benefits. As a flip to that, deep breathing is something that we kind of, as far as stress, we almost see that flip, that switch flip immediately, where people can start to feel like it's calming them down right in the moment. So I know I'm talking about some stress management techniques here in the self-care, but it's going to depend on that particular habit that you're taking on. So again, we're all looking to outside people to be the expert. And I always like to say, give yourself some credit. Look to yourself and go, hey, I've been meditating for a month now, and I've given it a really good shot. I've done it every day. And I don't really feel like this is doing anything for me. Well, then maybe you decide to try something else. Maybe you decide to try yoga, or you decide to try a different sort of stress management behavior. But really, really important to start exploring what it is that's going to make the difference for you. Did that answer that question? You can pop it in chat and I'll be able to see. Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions about self-care before we sign off today? There is a couple of self-care lessons in your Live Well lessons that you can have a look through. I just really encourage you to think about what your non-negotiable self-care habits are. Again, a little bit of introspection. Introspection can be tough sometimes. It can make us, it feels like, gee, that can be a lot of work just to sit down and think about what works for me. But carve some time out for yourself and really think about it. What is it for me that makes a difference? I know when I first read Michelle Seeger's work, I had to stop and think about it. I know so many things are healthy for me. I know so many things are needed to have a full and complete self-care practice. But for me to stop and actually think about which one of these for me has to be absolutely non-negotiable. And though you'd think I would say exercise, for me, it was my sleep, simply because I know that I will struggle to get the exercise in if I didn't get a good night's sleep. So one feeds off of the other. So I have to make the sleep happen so that I can make sure I get the exercise part in too. So again, think about that negotiable. Start thinking about how you can make that happen every day in your life, so you're supporting yourself and you're getting that self-care in. Look for those things, those niggling tasks that may be running and creating stress in the background, doctor's appointments or paperwork, things like that, and then make time for yourself, because me time is not selfish. Have a fantastic week. Next week, we do not have a live with Sara and Tasha. It is spring break for our children. And so I will be taking a little me time with the kids. And Sarah's children are off as well. So we will be back on March 25th. And I'm sorry, I should have had ready what we're talking about. Bear with me one sec while I look it up. We will be talking about how fast can your computer work to get it up, Tasha? The power of gratitude. I love that topic. So be prepared, thinking about what you are grateful for walking into the next live with Sara and Tasha. Thanks so much for joining me. We'll talk soon. Bye, everyone.